While others rise and fall, Gladius has remained a cornerstone of competitive 40k. But why? Let's unpack the core of what makes Gladius so strong and why it's yet to lose its throne. I hope you enjoy. Section 1. Oath of Moment. So in this video we're going to break down all the different aspects of what make Gladius Task Force such a strong detachment in Space Marines, and specifically why it compounds so well with Ultramarines specifically. Being able to take access to Rabute Gilliman and Marnie's Kelgar and all the other things that can kind of excel at. But we're going to break it down onto a few different sections, the first one being Oath of Moment. So let's read together what Oath of Moment does. If your army faction is Adeptus Astartes, which it is, at the start of your command phase, select one unit from your opponent's army until the start of your next command phase. That enemy unit is your Oath of Moment. Each time a model with this ability makes an attack that targets your Oath of Moment target, you can reroll the hit roll. If you're using a Codex Space Marines detachment and your army does not include one or more units with the Black Templars, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Death Watch, or Space Wolves keywords, add one to the wound roll as well. Now this is an absolutely absurd rule. This is just the fact that you get full hit rerolls, so you're adding consistency, you're making sure you're getting those kills. It's very, very strong. But then you also are adding in the fact that with the +1 to wound, because we're Ultramarines, notably in that list of keywords that are excluded from getting this, from getting the +1 to wound, did not include Ultramarines, means you also get the +1 to wound. So you pick a unit, you get reroll hits, and you get +1 to wound. So you're getting a hit and a wound modifier effectively. Reroll hits is somewhat like a modifier for your hit roll because you're getting more consistency from your hits, and +1 to wound is just a flat damage increase because you're going to be getting more wounds through. So this makes all your units punch up so incredibly well that even your trash units, your secondary things that usually don't do a lot of damage, now with full hit rerolls, so they're getting pretty much everything Space Marines hits on a 3, so you're hitting on 3s with 4 rerolls, that's 90 plus hit rate. Then you're also adding on +1 to wound, so now you're getting these Strength 4 scouts with combat knives, and now because they're AP1, they're hitting most of the time, they're wounding way more than they should, that you actually can kill units that are better than themselves with all of your units. So all of your units can trade up so much and punch up so much. And it also means that to kill things, you often need to do a trade war. Like you're sending one unit out, then they send a unit out to kill your unit. But you have to send less out because you can send a cheaper unit or a less efficient unit because you have the extra efficiency of Oath of Moment to kind of back you up with the reroll hits, with the +1 to wound, so that unit of Assault Intercessors, or the unit of Jump Pack Assault Intercessors, unit of Scouts, that unit of Incursors, they can all kill things that they wouldn't normally be able to because you're adding this consistency. You're making them hit so much harder that you can commit less, while still achieving the same goals that you would be usually having to commit a bigger unit or a more expensive unit. Section 2. The Doctrines. So now let's read through the combat doctrines that Gladius Task Force gets access to. I know a lot of people might know these, but let's just go through them so we all have this exact same picture in our heads. So at the start of your command phase, you can select one of the combat doctrines listed below. Until the start of your next command phase, that combat doctrine is active and the effects apply to all Adeptus Astartes units from your army. You can only select each combat doctrine once per battle. So you get 3 of them and you can use each of them once. And it affects everything in your army that is Adeptus Astartes. So none of your allied stuff, but everything that is Adeptus Astartes. So what are the 3 doctrines? You have Devastator Doctrine, which will make this unit is eligible to shoot in a turn in which it advanced, so you get advance and shoot. You have Tactical Doctrine, which is able to shoot in a turn in which it fell back, so you also can't get tagged. So a good way of manipulating shooting armies is to tag them a bunch, so they have to fall back or they have to shoot in combat with a -1 to hit. With access to Tactical Doctrines, being able to declare a charge and shoot on a turn in which you fell back means you can always make sure you're getting those fights first, means you can always get those correct angles to shoot, or you can fall back to shoot and then stay a bit safer. Huge benefit there. And then the last one is the Assault Doctrine, and this this unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced, which is great for pressuring objectives, for gaining that consistent go turn, being able to use all of these really efficiently and really succinctly to make sure that you use them at the correct time is very important. But all these abilities are incredibly powerful on their own. Some armies just get one of these as the army-wide rule for the entire game, and you only probably use it once or twice on 1 or 2 turns realistically. Whereas this one you can pick at the start of your turn. Well, I need to be able to advance and shoot to make sure I get those angles. Cool. Everything in your army now can advance and shoot, and now you can get those angles. Oh, they've tagged a bunch of my units. Cool. Now I can fall back, shoot, and charge, and get back into exactly where I need to be. Or you can be like, well, I'm a bit out of reach from my melee units. Cool. All my melee units can get advance and charge, so then you can get to where you need to go. Great toolbox of abilities for a detachment rule. So yeah, the main things that these give you is it gives you adaptability, right? It gives you the access to do whatever you need to do on the turn that you need to do it. You can't be stopped in a lot of ways, as your opponent can't really stop you from doing what you want to do, because if they tag into you, you just call fall back and shoot. If they try and stay a little bit further away from you, it's like, well, I'll just call advance and charge. So now I can go and reach them again. So then they have to sit even further back. So you're either pushing your opponent away and make them play very differently, or you just have the answer that you need for the situation that you are in. It's an incredibly good toolbox to have. Section 3, the stratagems. Now you've probably seen a lot that the stratagems that Gladius has access to are like one of the best toolbox of stratagems. And talking to one of my friends that plays Gladius a lot, I asked him, like, what are your few favorite stratagems? And he blankly said back to me, I think they have the 6 of the best stratagems in the game. And I was like, okay, very good, very good. So these are the 6 stratagems you have access to are all phenomenal. You have Armor of Contempt, which is very common. All Space Marine detachments have access to Armor of Contempt, I believe. I think every single one of them does. So which is just -1 AP when you get targeted for that activation. Now, it did used to be for the rest of the phase. It is now only for that specific activation, so it is neutered, but it is still very powerful when it comes up. But some of the really important ones that Gladius Task Force has access to is the Storm of Fire and Honor the Chapter stratagems. Storm of Fire is, in your shooting phase, you can pick one of your units, and until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in this unit have ignores cover, which often means +1 AP, because so much, like, how often are you not shooting it into a unit that's in cover? And then if the Devastator Doctrine is active, you also gain an additional 1 AP. So you're getting kind of effectively 2 AP from using the stratagem a lot of the time. And then we also have access to Honor the Chapter, which is you get Lance. You pick a unit in the start of the fight phase, you get Lance. So if you've charged or heroically intervened, you get +1 to wound. So it means you don't have to put your oath target on there. And then if it's the Assault Doctrine, which is the Advance and Charge Doctrine, you also get +1 AP as well. So you can really help your units punch up. And it's great if you need to kill multiple units in a turn. You can put Oath of Moment on the one that you really need to kill, and then you can have this as a pocket stratagem to still get that +1 to wound, and then potentially +1 AP to really kill that side unit as well, or something else. This can also be used in conjunction with Guilliman's Second Oath, so you can actually effectively kill 3 things quite consistently in a turn, which can be really backbreaking for your opponent if used well. A couple of the other stratagems that work really well here is Adaptive Strategy. Now this combines really well with the last 2 that I just talked about, because in your command phase you select one Adeptus Astartes unit from your army, you select one of the doctrines that are available to you, which is the Devastator, Tactical, or Assault Doctrine, and until the start of your next command phase, that unit is in that doctrine instead of any other doctrines that are called, and if you didn't call a doctrine, obviously they're just in this doctrine instead. But this combines with the other stratagems, that so if you need to be in Devastator Doctrine because you need that extra AP to make sure that your tank pushes through or that unit shooting pushes through, then you can have access to it. Yes, it's 2 CP, but from a couple of the units that you can take, and Ultramarines with Marnie's Calgary giving extra CP, and Guilliman giving a free strat every round within 12 inches, you really have access to so much CP and stratagem efficiency that you can often do these to have a unit that can hit a little harder, or you can even use Adaptive Strategy with squad tactics if you can really think about the next turn ahead. And this is where Gladius really kind of skyrockets in player skill is when you can use Gladius Task Force and use these stratagems for thinking about the next turn. Because if you use adaptive strategy and go into the and put your unit into the tactical doctrine, even if they don't need to this turn, if you do that and then use the squad tactic stratagem in your opponent's turn. So firstly, let's talk about the squad tactic strat. Your opponent's movement phase, just after an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback move. One Adeptus Astartes infantry or mounted unit from your army that is within 9 inches of that enemy unit that just moved. Your unit can make a normal move of up to d6 inches, or a normal move of up to 6 inches instead if it is under the effects of the tactical doctrine. So this is where, like, if you need to make sure that you don't want to have to try and roll a 2+ to get behind a wall, or a 3+, whatever it might be, you can be like, cool, this unit's out here. If you end within 9, they're in tactical doctrine. I can now move behind this wall because I have a flat 6-inch move. Really, really powerful combos here. It's also just great on its own. You don't even need tactical doctrine. It's still just great as a resource, being able to move. It's a normal move, so you can get back into transports if you're playing with transports. Say like you put a repulsor, you can get your unit out, shoot with them, and then if an enemy unit ends with a 9, you can just get back into the repulsor. There's some really cool tricks you can do with this, and it really makes your opponent have to play around it. But this is where I'm saying, like, Gladius is such a high level and such a powerful detachment because you have access to some great stratagems. But like the layers that you can get to, the stratagems on their own are very powerful, but you can combine them together using your Oath of Moment, using these stratagems, using the extra CP that you get from Guilliman or from Calgar, and you can combine these together into such powerful combos that it really puts your opponent on the back foot. So with these stratagems, you kind of just get everything you need, you're maximizing your output, and you're always able to adapt to the new situations that you are dealt with. So if your opponent throws a curveball and puts rapid ingress as a unit, we didn't expect it. Gladius has a great toolkit to be able to react with your opponent as well. So you can kind of play a bit of a slower game. You can kind of chill out a little bit and just play a slow game, score your secondaries, lock down your primary, and then if your opponent ever slips up, then you can pounce on them because you have access to all this different stuff. But also, if your opponent throws a curveball, maybe they make a couple of extra saves than they're supposed to, or they pressure you a little bit, you have the damage with these extra stratagems, with the extra oath and all this kind of stuff to really push through and react to whatever your opponent does. Section 4. The units. So when it comes to units in Ultramarines Gladius, there are some key points, but there's also so many units that you can take, and they're not bad choices. Lists have been refined very much so that the damage dealers are often your Vindicators, your Calgar and Company Heroes combo, and Guilliman, and those are kind of your main damage dealers. You're taking 2 to 3 Vindicators, a couple of Ballistas Dreadnoughts, Calgar and Guilliman, and that's kind of your damage dealing package. And then you have some more mission play pieces, which are like your Assault Intercessors with jump packs, your Invader ATVs with either the Gatling or the Multi-Melter. They're both kind of good in Gladius. And then your Scout units. And you also can have like Infiltrators and Cursors. Really, the sky's the limit. There is so many good options here. But the issue is you kind of run into a points bottleneck before anything else. All the options are very good, but you have to decide on which direction you want to go. There's also options for damage dealers that are Blade Guard veterans with Judicias. Can be really interesting with the reactive moves and the fight on death. So you have fights first, but then you can also fight on death. So you have all the kind of tools to play around with that. You have options to the different Predator variants. So you have Predator Annihilators and Destructors, whether you need a bit more anti-tank or a bit more anti-infantry. These can be really, really strong choices as well. The sky's kind of the limit here, but there are certain units that are often better than others. Jump Pack Intercessors or JPIs are just very efficient for their points cost, and especially so in Ultramarines Gladius with the +1 to wound from Oath. Just makes them that little bit above the rest. Section 5. The weakness. Now when it comes to a detachment, there is always a place where they're not super strong, right? So what are the weaknesses to this detachment? We've talked about all the ways that this army is very strong and all the different kind of things it can do. But what actually makes it weak? Like, what is it weak to? So what are its weaknesses? The first one is a low model count. The army doesn't have that many units, especially if you're going the Vindicators and Ballistus Dreadnought route. If you're taking the 3 and 3 of those, you really have very, very few resources to play the game with. You have like 1 or 2 units of scouts, you have 1 or 2 units of jump pack intercessors, and then you have Guilliman and Calgar, and that's kind of your list. It's really, really tight on resources, but because everything pushes up, it can be really good. But it's also a place where you can exploit the army. If you can pick off a couple of the mission playing pieces, the scouts, the JPIs early, then they're going to have to be holding objectives with their Ballistus Dreads and the Vindicators, and then you can kind of get yourself into positions to into angles where you can fight back off those and then tag the vehicles, kind of overwhelm them after you've kind of chipped away at them. But there's no real good way of overloading them or overwhelming them in one on an early turn. You can overwhelm them late game once you've picked apart the army a little bit, and a good general shouldn't allow that to happen, but it's sometimes the games, depending on what secondaries you pull, that can definitely be a way to play into it. But the units they do have are very strong, but they don't have that many of them. But do remember that because of Oath of Moment and Guilliman giving a second Oath of Moment after you've killed the first, that they can often use the second Oath of Moment defensively. You use the first one, that's something you're guaranteed to kill, and then on your clapback unit, say it's a unit of Wardens, well, I'm going to put my second Oath of Moment on that, so if you come out with them, even on my fight on death, if you come and kill me, I get some little extra efficiency into you. So there's a few different ways you can kind of play that second Oath of Moment, which is just incredibly strong. So you kind of got to think about that, but if your opponent hasn't put Oath of Moment on one of your go units, then that is the time to be like, okay, cool, this is the turn I'm going to send this unit out because it's a bit more durable this turn. It can kind of deal with some stuff. It's going to take more assets to now deal with on my opponent's turn, which is kind of how you have to play the game. And then the last thing is Gladius plays a very passive and reactive game plan. And what I mean by this is Gladius Task Force can't really push and go unless its opponent pushes and goes. So if you're sitting back and you're both scoring consistently on secondaries, you kind of get to call the shots a lot of the time because the Gladius player cannot come out and kind of push the go turn unless his opponent's given him the opportunity to. So if you castle up, hold your primary down, like hold your home field and your expansion objectives really well, and not try to play around a whole lot, and just kind of tie the center, flip the center, make sure that you're scoring evenly on secondaries and primary. You can kind of play that until you feel that you are ready to go forward. And the Gladius player is going to have to try and just match that. They can't really go too aggressive because they have lower units. If they risk their units without the extra oath or without the guarantee of killing the stuff, it can be a real issue for them, and then they can fall apart really quickly. Section 6. How to beat Gladius. So with the weaknesses in place, how do we actually beat them? And I kind of alluded to this in the last section quite a bit, but the first thing you really want to do is you want to pull them apart and force them to send multiple units to deal with your units, wherever possible, whether it's because you have a reactive move, or whether it's because your unit is too durable, or there's a lot of different things that can come up here that can make it a bit of a pain for your opponent to deal with. But you do have to guarantee that if you are sending this out, or sending this bait out, as it were, that you have a guaranteed plan of answering whatever they send out. You can't be like, oh, I think I can deal with this, and then so you send it out, you lose a resource, and then they only lose half a resource, and then that other half, because of all the compounding effects that Gladius has, then they get to catapult and do extraordinary amount of damage to you, which is just going to be awful for your game plan. So you have to really know your damage profiles and what you need to do to be able to kill the units that you're trying to pull out from them. And I think the main thing you can do to a Gladius army is lock down your primary better than they can, especially if you're playing an army that has good heroicing units, so they can't just send 5 JPI, and if you can put more than 5 OC on the point, so the jump pack intercessors aren't flipping the primary, or the 5 scouts, whatever it is, they have a very much OC 5 and below kind of problem, apart from a couple of specific units, like the intercessor unit and like Calgar's unit. So if you can lock down your primary and then keep flipping their primary, so say you're scoring 8s or 10s and then they're scoring 3s or 5s, that's a huge point swing. Even if you're only doing that once or twice in a game, that is flipping the game into your favor, and then it's forcing the Gladius player to come out and be the aggressor player, which they don't want to do. They don't want to have to force the game to be played. They want the game to be passive, and then they want to be able to control it. So if you can flip that on its head, so they have to be the aggressor, and set up situations where like they might fall into small traps, or they might not kill these units because of where you've positioned your units, that's how you can get a head start and really start to capitalize on a Gladius Task Force army. But all in all, I think Gladius is one of the strongest detachments in 40k. If anything, I think it is probably the strongest detachment. It has an amazing set of detachment rules. It has probably the best set of stratagems you have access to. It has decent enhancements, even though some of them maybe cost a little bit more than they should now. And it's just the toolbox of everything you have access to, especially with Gilliman with his double abilities, with Calgar getting the extra CP every turn, so you always have access to all these great stratagems. So you have some of the best stratagems in the game, and you have all the CP in the world to deal with those stratagems. It's really up to the pilots to play the game as well as they can and build their list to deal with what they want to deal with in the meta right now. And it's a reason why I think Gladius as it is right now is not going to be dethroned from one of the best armies in the game, because you can always build it to whatever the meta is. If it's gotten really stat checky, you can add more guns in. If it's gotten more diverse with lots of units, you can add in more trade pieces because your trade pieces are just more efficient. All these things just compound together to make a really, really solid set of rules and a really, really strong detachment. And even if in the future, in the data slate, Gladius loses the Ultramarines lose the +1 to wound from Oath, I still think it's a really strong detachment. Even with just standard reroll hits Oath, I think it has all the toolbox pieces to have. It just becomes overwhelmingly strong with these extra changes. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. There'll be a new video somewhere here or here on what to watch next. I just want to say thanks to everyone for getting me to 1,000 subscribers. Really awesome to see. Really loving the kind of the hype train we're going on right now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time.